Yo guys, welcome to the Beyond the Tape news, a short video just wrapping up things that have gone on in Australia racing and the scene and a few other things that have been happening over the last couple of months. I endeavoured to do this once a month, but unfortunately things didn't go to plan and I've been all over the place. So first up, went to Thredbo, went there for Cannonball and Nationals. That was pretty rad. Good to see Luke Smith take the win for the national champs. Jackson Goldstone took the overall race, but because he's not Australian, he couldn't be crowned the champion. So yeah, Luke Smith was looking strong all weekend. I knew he had it in the bag. As long as he could keep it upright on that race run, then he was going to be sweet. He had a crash in qualies or in seeding and put him back a bit. But yeah, absolutely smoked it in the race day. Shana Hearn was on fire all weekend. You can just tell she's in a different mindset and her riding shows. A lot more relaxed, a lot faster, and you know, just riding like she used to back in 2019, like back before injuries and back before the COVID stuff. So cool to see her up there. After that, went to Highline, went to shoot with Mikey Ross. Ross was absolutely shredding. Unfortunately, there was a lot of wind and a lot of event delays with a few things there, so didn't end up the way we kind of wanted it to with the filming and the shooting and stuff, but man, it was cool to see him rip. Luke Parker as well, on another level, both of those guys, and to see Mikey Ross actually go and take the W a week later in Speed and Style in Roto, that was sick. Yeah, and then kind of onto the bigger racing, ended up down in Tassie for Derby, went down there with Tailored Trails, which was rad. They just picked me up from the airport, everything was sorted. Yeah, it was there for Derby, but let's talk about some racing before that. I mean, if you want to look at the EWS and Tassie and you want to learn one thing, that's that Aussies and Tassies know how to party. I was watching Maydena at every step, looked at all the photos, looked at all the videos, and went to the doctor, and turns out I had a severe case of FOMO because the course looked epic. New trails looked epic and the crowd looked absolutely wild. It was cool to see what Maydena can do when it comes to a party and an atmosphere and just holding an event. Man, they're just the best. Honestly, probably the best in Australia. Between them and Thredbo, like they're the top events for anyone to go to. We saw the courses suit those guys that really love the downhill, really love gravity-fed trails and stuff that's gonna, you know, have them hanging their balls out as much as possible, really. We saw Luke Smith, who basically lives there, take first for the race, which is no big surprise. He's super fit, super strong, and knows those trails real well. Obviously, Dan Booker coming in second, showing some more local knowledge, but I don't want to make it all about that. Dan is shredding so hard at the moment. And you got to remember, like, they're racing guys like Troy Brosnan, you know, you've got Gilchrist in there, you've got Richie Rude, you've got Eddie Masters, you've got Martin Mays, like the best in the world. So even though they've got this local knowledge, it's not everything. And see Connor Fearon, after taking a year off of the EWS, he's kind of come back and just raced these home rounds and yeah, ripped it into third. We all knew these guys were going to be up there. The terrain suits them. They know the tracks. They're pinned. It was cool to see Reece Werner coming out of the gates, swinging his way into fourth while Troy Brosnan came in fifth. A huge shout out as well to Ryan Gilchrist. On the naturally aspirated bike after training on the e-bike for the last few months, he slotted in sixth. Expect big things from him this year. He is absolutely ripping. The women's was taken out by Isabeau Cordoria. She's not shy of the tracks that get wild. She loves that kind of physical, hard-hitting tracks. Morgan Shah took out second over Ella Connolly. Bex Barona took out fourth, which is huge, and then Hattie Harden in fifth. Now, Hattie's obviously an amazing rider. You've probably heard that on the podcast, on the Tape podcast or something. We had a good chat with her, and she's now got her hands on a downhill bike, so let's see what happens. Huge shout out again, one of our favourite humans in Australian mountain biking, Sasha Kim, took the win in juniors. Not only that, his time would have put him just above Gilly in 6th, and he was only 5 seconds behind Troy. In fact, he took an overall win for a stage for the day. Again, a bit of local knowledge, but man, Sasha's ripping. Going from those gravity-fed trails, that bike park, that super steep natural terrain with a bit of pedaling thrown in, a couple of shuttles on the Maydena one as well. Only 4 days later, the guys were thrown into Derby, where I was down there for practice day and there until the Monday. Practice on Thursday sucked. It was brutal. I have never been in that much rain ever in my life. Literally, as soon as we got the shuttle up, as soon as we stepped off that bus, there were drops, and then they didn't stop raining until about 6 o'clock that night. All the cameramen soaked, all the riders soaked. The tracks were absolutely wild. No shuttles for any of the athletes for any of the training. They just were pedaling in rain all day, and man, it was crazy. No one seemed to really be down too much, but yeah, it was a struggle out there. And I think that was one of the main reasons we saw Valli Hoel pull out of the race. One, tracks were flat, super pedally, and she's in the middle of training, so you don't want to mess around with her schedule. But also, it was just not a good fun time for practice. While the tracks were flat and pedally, it kind of brought back that raw feel of enduro, where you have to pedal, you have to climb, you have to ride the track that's in front of you, and there's probably going to be some random technical features, which Derby has all of. It was cool to see how technical the pedaling and the climbing bits were as well. I rode all the tracks, and yeah, it was definitely an experience. And I think because of that, we saw completely different podiums. In the women's, we saw Hattie Harden and Bex Barona trading blows all day. Literally first, second, first, second, first, second, the whole day, just trading blows. Unfortunately, on the last stage, we saw Hattie take a crash and left her with a rear brake lever all the way down, and she couldn't use it. So she lost some time in that last stage, and Bex Barona was strong enough to take the top step. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to one of our good friends, Alex Present. He is Bex's mechanic, and they are a great team. And as part of them being a team, they win these races together. So it was cool to see them both kind of get up there on their first World Cup step. And being the top step was pretty sick. He was so stoked, which was rad to see. We saw Ella Connolly backing up a strong Maydena round as she came into third. And then we saw Isabeau and Morgan Shah down in 4th and 5th respectively. Don't know if this is because of a couple of sicknesses that were going around. The tracks were just so much more pedally, and perhaps they weren't able to just rely on their point and shoot skills. But it was a cool day for the women's, and holy fuck, they can ride. Sorry for the swearing, don't care about monetization, but these ladies were ripping. I want to give a shout out to the Flying Raccoon as well. She was ripping. Yeah, it was so good to see her up there. She took a top 5 in a stage, I believe. So yeah, that was pretty rad. Pretty cool to see some Aussies ripping. Now, if you were to go deep into the jungle, into the forest of Derby, you would have spotted a few Yetis, and they were on fire. Richie Rude is an absolute animal on the pedals, and you could tell by him getting first in the race. All those pedaling, all that strong power that was needed to get out of the corners, get out of the slow stuff, and really get up to speed, worked true to his kind of power and the way he rides a bike. We saw Slavomir Lukasic rolled into second by 8 seconds, just showing how strong Richie is in these pedally yet powerful stages. It's cool to see Melamed back in form on his new bike as he smashed it into third. Jack has a pretty bad, Jack Moyer has a pretty bad hand injury, so to see him down the ladder in Maydena wasn't a surprise. What was a surprise was to see him smash it into 4th with only 4 days break. Man, he's ripping on that new bike. Then we saw Martin May's fastest dad of the day round out the podium in 5th. Sasha Kim, he's going to get all these sponsors. Telling you right now, he's going to have a lot of people looking at him this year. Junior men's title taken out by him again at Derby. And then Leah Ladbrokes, she has had a ripping couple of weeks. She is on fire and rides so well. She came in to 3rd in juniors. Then a couple of weeks later, let's talk about some Oceanas. She took out the 1st in elite for Oceanic Champions. So sick to see. Overall vibe from the EWS, man, the crowds in Australia, the crowds I saw down there were epic. Got heckled by a few of them. They were real supportive. It was cool to see athletes being so available to the public and just watching each other come down at the end. There was good vibes everywhere. And man, the after party went off. So yeah, the EWS, if you have a chance to get to one, definitely do it. Next year I'll be going to both if they're there, for sure. Let's talk about Oceanas. As I mentioned before, Leah Ladbrokes took 1st over Cassie Voicey. They were racing up into Woomba, I believe. Ellie Smith had a crash in seating. Who would have thought? She won't mind me saying that. But she got back into strength and really crawled back into 3rd for race day. Eldenoya, she had that hugie in Cairns last year. Basically broke everything, including Mother Earth. And she smashed it into 4th for the weekend up in Oceanas, which is sick. And then Arabella Green, which is rad. See her come in 5th. So some kind of newish names. We're going to see another resurgence here of juniors in the women's for sure. The elite, man. Obviously, Richie Rude took out the race. He was there on his prototype Yeti. But because he's American, he cannot take the Oceanic Championship. In 2nd place was some new up-and-comer by the name of Sam Hill. He is, he's looking promising on this downhill bike. A convert from Enduro to some. Sam Hill, man, it's so sick to see him racing downhill. Coming in 1st for this race. I mean, he was 2nd to Richie by 4 seconds, but man, Sam's on it. He's been building. I've had the opportunity to chill with him and kind of watch him racing over the last few weeks. Haven't said many words to him and I haven't chatted too much about the racing, but there's something about his kind of positioning, his posture, his attitude, and the way he's kind of conducting himself that says that he's kind of building. We saw him in Bulla, really chilling. Saw him in Threadbow, picked up the pace a little bit. If you watch Troy's video, you can see him ripping for sections. And then, yeah, just kind of playing it safe. So I think by June, it's going to be one to watch. Man, Ollie Davis, huge crash last year, broken everything. Had a very, very rough year coming up to this one, but he came in 2nd. So rad to see him up on the podium for Oceanas. Dan Booker in 3rd with a bit of a spontaneous entry, I believe. Jackson Connolly, gonna be huge this year. Huge year for that guy. I'm predicting it now. He came in 4th, and then it was cool to see Tassie local. Again, Will Hines round out the podium. So Tassie's ripping. Sasha Mills took out the win in junior women's. She is one to watch. Holy crap, she ride a bike. She raced Adelaide here a few weeks ago, and she whipped better than anyone on the bottom hip. So, man, keep an eye on Sasha Mills. She's a big up-and-comer. And then we got William Pope. It was cool to see him finally take out a win. He's been on it and been very, very close for a while now. So, good to see him take out a win, and hopefully that boosts their chances of getting on the World's team. But who bloody knows these days? As I'm speaking right now, a bit of race stuff as well before we roll on to tech. Darkfest is going off at the moment. If you're not watching those videos, pause this shit, go and watch it. Bloody awesome. Haz is over there. There's a bunch of women shredding. The dudes are hitting some big jumps. I mean, the shortest jump for the beeline is 90 foot for one of them. So when you're beelining to a 90-foot jump, you know shit's getting wild. Yeah, go and watch it because it's fucking good content. Yeah. All right, enough of that swearing, enough of that stuff. Let's move on to a bit of tech stuff for the last bit of this news, I guess. We have seen 3 big drivetrains in the last couple of months. Huge changes in the industry, and as a mechanic and as someone that's working in the industry, it's kind of thrown it into a bit of a spiral, and we're kind of seeing what's going on here. So first up, we've got Shimano. Now, Shimano haven't released anything, I want to say super rad, for at least 4 to 5 years. They've kind of been resting on their laurels. You know, XTR works good, SLX works good. Dior's probably their best performing budget group set on the market right now. And that is kind of showing what they're focused on. They're focused on these entry-level componentry, this kind of price point stuff that works really damn good and is amazing value for money. On this Q system, it is all there to take away Alivio, Altus, Acera, Sora, all these group sets that kind of exist for no reason. So we've got an 8-speed, a 9-speed, a 10-speed setup, 7-speed as well. At the current state, they all use a 7-speed cassette, which could be screw-on or screw-on cluster or a cassette. They use a 6 or 7-speed chain, which can also be used on 8 if you want. Then you've got to run the same chain ring, and then you've got to run an 8-speed shifter, but then a 7-speed shifter. But then if you want to go 9-speed, you need a 9-speed chain, a 9-speed cassette, a 9-speed derailleur, Nothing is compatible within that group. And it's the way it's been for years and years and years. And Shimano basically threw all that in the bin and came up with this Q system, which stands for Create Unique Experiences. Just call it Qs. It's a dumb, I don't know why they do this. Anyway, basically you've got a 7, 8, 9 and 10 speed cassette. They all use the same HG freehub body. So one freehub body. They all use the same spacing throughout. So they all use a same 11 speed chain. They can all use the same rear derailleur, I believe, but don't quote me on that. I think for the bigger cassettes you need a different derailleur, but you can definitely use the same shifter on all of them, which is pretty sick. I mean, if you've got 10 speed and you break a shifter and you're going to go grab the 7-speed one, it's only going to give you 7 clicks, so you're going to have a 10-speed system but with 7 gears. But if you're in a pinch, that's pretty damn rad. If I was a bike shop, I'd be carrying a bunch of 10-speed ones, because that's going to get you out of trouble for these guys that break a 7-speed and we can't get the right shifter, because who cares? It's all going to work. Everything works together. So no longer are we needing to stock 10, 20 SKUs of product, 10 or 20 different variations. We can just keep the same chains, the same chain rings, way less stuff to muck around with. So to me, that's one of the biggest kind of things in the industry, or to happen for a while now. On the other end of the scale, the complete opposite. The guys that are building these hyperbikes, these super bikes, the guys that are filling in your teeth or replacing your teeth every now and then, the dentists, they needed something new. So transmission from SRAM came out. Now, I was lucky enough to see this in person last year at Maydena Enduro Jam. Seen it on the web a lot, but when I first saw it in person, I was like, holy shit, this is a game changer. They finally released it. Everything looked rad to me, and there was a bunch of complaints and a bunch of crap to do with what's going to go wrong with these things. First off, they got rid of the derailleur hanger. If you knew anything, you would have seen that SRAM released the UDH a few years ago. This was what we now know as the Trojan hanger. It was basically a way to standardize all these frames for an upcoming transmission install, but without having to go through all the rigmarole of changing everything at once. They slowly made this derailleur hanger becoming the norm on all the frames. Now you can just fit this new transmission up with no hassle at all. Now, a lot of people are like, well, the derailleur hanger is a mechanical fuse. It's there to stop the derailleur breaking your rear triangle. One, that's because derailleur technology was very outdated and we needed that mechanical fuse because it couldn't do what the current transmission does, which is absorb the impact, spin rearward instead of putting all this pressure on the hanger. The derailleur now takes the brunt of the impact. There's parts on the derailleur that have become the mechanical fuse. Everything is replaceable. So instead of having the hanger become the mechanical fuse, it's moved down into the derailleur, and there's smaller parts that you can get. And they're all from SRAM. They're all for that one component. There are not 50,000 different hangers now that a mechanic needs to go ciphering through because people won't put bloody part numbers on their hangers. You just go to SRAM. Everything is easier. And trust me, if you break your rear mech hanger or that rear mech so hard that it breaks your rear triangle, that rear triangle was toast anyway. The amount of roadies, the amount of mountain bikes I've seen with a jam stick in the derailleur, catches the hanger, spins around and completely wipes out a seat stay. Phenomenal. Breaks all the time. Happens all the time. Yet no one complains about it. So I'm a huge fan of this new transmission stuff. It's going to be stiffer, shift better under load, shift better for e-bikes. The chains are going to probably last longer, in my opinion, just because the shifting channels, everything's timed better. It's more mechanical sympathy on pretty much everything. And the cassettes are going to probably last longer. Everything is just better. So I'm pretty stoked on it. And I haven't ridden it, so I don't know. These are all my opinions. But yeah, I'm super stoked for it. The new shifter looks rad. Everything about this system looks perfect for me anyway. Now, in between and on the same day, we saw a new player come in with a 12-speed group set. Or drivetrain, sorry. TRP have released a 12-speed drivetrain. So rear mech shifter cassette, I believe, but they use a KMC chain, and then I think the chain ring doesn't matter. The shifter is the coolest thing out of this. I mean, it's a 12-speed rear mech. It probably does everything that SRAM and Shimano do. Goes up and down, clicks real well, is what it is. The cool thing with this shifter is you can have a multi-shift or you can have a single shift. If you've ever ridden an e-bike, the single shift up is there to stop you from doing multi-shifts and completely destroying a chain, because that extra load you're putting through it plus the motor will just completely snap it. So what's happened in the past is SRAM and Shimano, I don't know if Shimano does this actually, but SRAM have definitely had two shifters, the e-bike one and then the non-e-bike one. The only difference is 1 click versus 3 clicks. TRP have a little switch on the bottom of their thing which allows you to do both. Now, a lot of you are going to be saying, why would I want to get rid of that? Well, if you're anything like me, I don't have the best thumb action and I don't have the best feeling in my thumb due to some pretty heavy arm injuries. So I actually really like the single click. It stops me grabbing a bunch accidentally when I'm in a race or on a ride or whatever. Just the single click works. It works so damn well. So TRP, if you're listening, can you please maybe hook us up? I don't know when they're available, mid-year, something like that, but it's going to be sick. That's pretty much for everything I've got on what has happened. What is happening, who knows. World Cup racing for downhill starts in a couple of months. We've seen Sean, we've seen a few people head over there already. They're getting their testing done with Fox. There's a bunch of IXS, there's a bunch of other little races happening. So everyone's kind of getting into the groove. This year is going to be wild. This year is going to probably be one of the best downhill seasons ever. We've got a bunch of old dogs, we've got a bunch of new dogs, and yeah, it's going to be bloody insane. All the women seem to be healthy. yeah, I'm so keen. We've seen the EWS or ERD or EDR or EWC, whatever you want to call it, that's taken off really well. And then, yeah, slopestyle. So I can't wait to see Mikey Ross and the boys from Aussie starting to shred. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, shoot out to Beyond Tape on Instagram or leave them in the comments below. And yeah, thanks for watching. I've got some new products coming soon too. Anyway, enjoy and we'll catch you soon.